we'll go ahead and get started. So today we have Camille Hockheimer from the Center for Innovative Design and Analysis to talk to us. And then also Amanda Miller is here to talk to us about Redcap. Just a reminder, if you have comments during the presentation, go ahead and put them in chat and we'll address them at the end of each presentation. And then Allison Lakin is here from Regulatory Compliance, and I think she has a few words she wants to say.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know there should be announcements coming out later today if they haven't already come out. But we, along with research coordinators, central administration is also struggling with staff retention and hiring. And it is particularly impacting our contracting office right now. And so you will see a slowdown in CDA, CTA, and MTA review and execution. So we will be prioritizing clinical trial agreements. And part of what we can do with clinical trial agreements is we can outsource. But as part of that, to help us evaluate and prioritize, once you submit to the HSR portal, you'll get a request for a survey, and that's a feasibility survey. So what I can tell you is we sign around 350, 400 clinical trial agreements, and last year we closed 300 studies with 0 enrollment. So we will be prioritizing research where individuals do not have open studies with 0 enrollment. We'll also be asking you to do a feasibility assessment of recruitment based on using resources like Trinetics or LEAF, which I think Health Data Compass is coming out with shortly. So we need some help in prioritizing. We can't be everything to everybody right now. And so please be accurate in how you fill out that survey. And obviously, if you can avoid contacting our contracting office, because the more they're responding to emails, the less they're actually doing their work. And so I need them focused. MTAs, we are, again, we're going to prioritize as much as we can. A lot of those are templated, so it's merely a volume issue there. And I'm hoping to come back to you next month with a different approach to CDAs. So we currently, again, run around 900 CDAs a year, and of those 300 convert to clinical trial agreements. And so we're looking to reduce the busy work that goes into CDAs. So I'll come back to you shortly, but research is not grinding to a halt. We will keep things moving forward. Fortunately, we have a lot of master agreements. So if you're doing a study that's under a master, that is just much more effective from a resource perspective. So feel free to reach out to me if you want me to come to research meetings and discuss what we're doing and the impact and how we're managing it. I am happy to do so. But I'd ask that you deflect to me and not to the contracting team. I'm not sure if anybody's got any questions. If you want to digest it and save it till the end and let Camille go next. So I think we're all facing the same issues. There's just a general too much work and not enough resources. So thank you for the understanding. If it was easy to hire, we wouldn't be in this position either. But I think at this point, we're competing nationally too. So it's an interesting time. I can't give you a rough timeline on CDAs. I can't give you a rough timeline on anything. So here's the answer. I've got annually we do 1,500 agreements, and I'm down to currently 1 FTE. So you can do the math on how long it's going to take until I get I've got some other options, and we're training some people, and we're going to do the best we can do. But I would say you're going to need to prioritize which agreements you really need working on, because we can't do everything at this point. It's just not feasible with the best will in the world.
Allison, for zero accruing studies, are you looking at oncology as well, or non-oncology?
Dr. Liu knows we're looking at oncology too.
Okay, and so my next question is, for zero accrual, what's the time span? Like, can they open to accrual for 6 months, or is it a year? Because I want to make sure it doesn't conflict with our current PRMS policy.
We're just, again, I'm using it to assess prioritization. So it's a question in a series of questions, and I'll be working with you and Dr. Liu on how we handle the oncology ones, but they still need to fill out the information.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Camille.
Are you seeing my presenter one or the?
Yeah, the presenter one.
Okay, I'll switch them. All right. So thank you so much for having me today. My name is Camille Hockheimer, and I am a research associate with CETA, the Center for Innovative Design and Analysis. And I also serve as the consulting center manager. And so what I want to talk today about is like just giving kind of a brief overview of CETA and all of the different resources that we have and kind of what our group looks like. But really our goal is that we are a campus-wide biostatistics and data science resource and research center. Okay, sorry. So actually, Natasha, can we go ahead with the first poll? I have a little poll at the beginning. Can you do the other one, actually, the intro poll? Sorry. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm interested in whether you've heard of CETA or whether you've never heard of us before. And then a couple of questions about, have you ever had data and you didn't know where to find someone who could analyze it, and a few questions about statisticians. And I'll give us like 30 seconds.
Right now, 60% of participants have.
Yeah, let's pull it. It's been 30 seconds. That's
Yeah, so I'm going to share the
we gotta
results.
move. Perfect. Awesome. So, okay, so most people have heard of CETA, 64%, but some of you have not, which is great. I'm glad you're here today. Most of you know where to find someone who can help you analyze data. That's great. And then these are kind of leading questions, I guess. But yes, statisticians do provide expertise in study design and can help provide expertise also in grant writing, especially with crafting aims. Thank you. Okay, so our goal is really to remove the study design and analytic barriers that we know exist in health research. So at this point, we know that the barrier to knowledge is not actually going out and collecting the data, but knowing how to actually process that data in order to create new knowledge or actionable knowledge. And so in the ecosystem of our campus, our center really focuses on study design. So helping you to figure out what and how much data you should collect and under what conditions. And then also the data analysis. So how to turn your data into knowledge. And so our director, Nicole, created this cool little kind of like visual here that looks at the ecosystem of data within our campus. And you can see that CETA really tries to help you go from existing actionable knowledge to a new study design to look at some of these really large data sets like EHR data or claims or omics data sets, and then helping you with the data analytics to turn that into new actionable knowledge. We are a center that's jointly housed in the Colorado School of Public Health and the School of Medicine. And our team is made up of biostatisticians, data scientists, bioinformaticists, and we also have some computer scientists on our team. And we work with either individuals or teams of biomedical researchers around the campus. And so our structure is kind of for businesses. And then we also provide educational programming. So for like businesses, if you will, are consulting, collaboration and team science, external partnerships, and some actual methodological research. And all of our different functions fall into these 6 different buckets here. And so the main overarching goal here is that we're taking numbers, turning it into knowledge by using rigorous data, study design, state-of-the-art analytics, methodological innovation, and effective communication. So if we start in the facilitation box, one of our goals is to kind of help be a wayfinder on campus. So helping you navigate the campus resources, whether that be working with CETA directly, but we also know that there are other biostatistical resources on campus. So if we can kind of deduce that your project is better fit for the Cancer Center or Children's RI, we can also help connect you with them. We also have a 1-hour clinic where we can help answer more higher level design questions or analytic questions, and then also help you interpreting your results. Grant collaboration is another piece that we offer. We actually offer free grant collaboration with the expectation that you will hopefully include a CETA analyst on your study when it gets funded. And so we are really experts in the whole process of the grant creation or grant development rather. So things like aims and hypothesis development, study design, coming up with the sample size justification, the analysis plan, and then also we help you provide an actual budget for how much that will cost at the end of the day. So we ask that you come 60 days, at least 60 days before your grant is due. And it doesn't have to be in a nice, pretty form. It can be really in the early stages of that grant development, because having someone from CETA involved from the very start is going to really help make sure you're putting forth like the strongest analytical proposal that you can. When we look at design and analysis, we provide comprehensive study design and data analytics. And this kind of falls into 2 different buckets. We have short-term projects that run through the consulting center. So this is when you have kind of a well-defined like project that fits basically within one manuscript, and you're interested in partnering with someone who can analyze your data and help you write up the results, provide tables and figures, things like that. And we also do a lot of long-term collaborations. So this is either an FTE or contracts where we have a faculty member from CETA kind of embedded in your research team in the long term. So whether that be for the entire life cycle of a grant, or if you have a research group where you want consistent statistical support, we also, all of us, I think, on our team are embedded somewhere on campus. And that kind of leads into team formation, which happens kind of organically a lot of the time through CETA, because people come in with a short-term project, they start to build a relationship with a CETA faculty member, and this turns into a longer research partnership. We also have different partnerships with departments and groups around campus. For example, we have a consulting clinic for all of the medical students, as well as the internal medicine residents. And so they can actually come back to this clinic as many times as they want and get help with their different research projects. So this is, if you have internal medicine residents or you have medical students, please send them to us. And we have different partnerships with departments where, for example, again, kind of leading into this long-term collaboration where someone's really embedded in your department. For education, we have a lot of different short courses that we run. There's a couple of them are listed here: statistical literacy, data science, reproducible research. And we also are the host of CU's Data Week, which includes a couple of stats talks and then also had kind of an analysis project at the end. And then finally, members of CETA are doing their own methods research. So this could be a lot of different things going on. So clinical trials, some people are doing, omics data, structural equation modeling, really taking our experiences as collaborators and creating methods that we know can help push our collaborative research forward in terms of the analytic, using the state of the art analytics by creating them ourselves, essentially. And our team has a wide range of expertise in analytic methods and also working with really different types of data or study designs. This is not an exhaustive list, but one of the benefits of coming to CETA is that we have this really diverse set of skills throughout our team. And so we can try to match you with someone who can really use the type of analytic methods that you need or are really familiar with working with the type of data that you have. And just kind of our structure, again, is we want to be this kind of central hub for people looking for collaboration, consulting, maybe some methodological research, different educational pieces. And then we also have kind of the administrative and computing pieces as well, where we have project management, things like a GitLab server that we can also help to add to projects and research groups. So I've kind of thrown around the two terms consulting and collaboration a lot. And so I wanted to take a second to briefly define these. So when I'm talking about consulting, what I'm referring to is really these short-term projects. So it's a fixed amount of work, well-defined endpoints, something like getting feedback on a study design or having a well-defined research project that you want to turn into a manuscript. And this is usually paid for on an hourly basis. And the drawback is that your consultant hasn't been involved in the whole study process, so they might not be quite as invested. And all that's to say, consulting is not bad. It's necessary and very important. And often all people really need is a little bit of statistical consulting. But I do want to distinguish that from collaboration, which is where you have a statistician who's involved really from the start of the project all the way through to the final analyses. And generally, this is when you're working with someone for a fixed amount of FTE over several years. And the kind of best case example of this is you come to CETA, someone helps you write up your grant, and then they end up being involved all the way through to the dissemination of the study findings. So this is really a mutually beneficial relationship at its best. So we hope that having a biostatistician on your team can be really pushing your research to be as strong as possible. And then at the same time, it helps, statisticians, we love to work on projects from start to finish. It's what motivates us to be collaborative statisticians. And then also can help us maybe kind of think about some methodological areas for research on our end as well. Our group is made up of PhD faculty, master's faculty, and graduate students. And as Allison said, everyone is hiring. So we are also hiring at all levels. And I bring this up not because I'm trying to recruit from this group, but if you're interested, let me know. But what I want to point out is that we do a lot of joint hires with other departments around the campus. So if your department, your research group, your grant is looking for someone and you want biostatistical support, doing that hire jointly with CETA helps you because we can identify the candidates for you. We can screen them to make sure they have all of the qualifications that you need. We set them up with your research group to make sure that you agree it's a good fit for your research group. And then at the end of the day, what you have is a biostatistician on your team. And at the same time, when they're housed within CETA, we provide a lot of other support for those individuals. So for being in CETA allows this community of biostatisticians that they can lean on when they have different questions. We're all kind of always teaching each other different things. So it and then helps them with their methods research also. So having a joint hire with CETA can help you, again, include a biostatistician in your research team, but then at the same time, your biostatistician has this support network to really thrive in that position. So we are strong believers that that's kind of the best model for having a biostatistician on campus. Oh, I realized I forgot my other my other poll, but I'm just gonna keep going. So I'm hoping that when at this point you probably know when you need a statistical consultant, but I wanted to point this out. This comes from the American Statistical Association, and I think this is a really helpful document. But good times to come to CETA would be when you want help designing a study that you want to make sure will answer your research question. A lot of times a good time to come to us is when you are trying to do a power analysis or you want to know the sample size needed to answer your research question. We know that a lot of our clinical collaborators do have some kind of familiarity with statistical methods, but sometimes you need methods or that you're not familiar with, or you're working with a new type of data, and that's a really good time to come to CETA and see how we can help you. A lot of people come to us when they have a volume of data that they cannot handle themselves. So when you're working with Compass data, that is a gigantic data set often it's a relational database with a lot of different pieces that kind of link into each other. And our team has expertise in turning in these large relational data sets into a simple analysis data set that you can use then to complete your project. So a lot of times we have people coming to us when they have received a bunch of data from Compass and want to know how to get it to look like an analysis data set that they can use. And also when you want to use the latest methods for design and analysis, that's a really good time to come to us as well. And I love this quote, which is that when you consult a statistician, you enlist the help of a professional who's particularly skilled at solving research problems. The statistician will try to guide you to the best way to obtain an answer to your research questions. So we're really there to try to help you get from your original ideas to a concrete answer about some sort, whatever you're interested in, the goal of your research project. We also know that sometimes it's a little bit intimidating to talk to a statistician. I don't think we're particularly scary, but I always want to remind people that, we don't know anything about your clinical area of expertise, and we don't expect you to know anything about statistics. So there are no stupid statistics questions, but I think it's sometimes helpful to be primed for what your statistician is going to ask you in that interaction. And so when you come to CETA, you should expect that a statistician that you meet with will ask you about your research question, about your outcome, specifically how it's measured. They will ask you about the population you're trying to study. Have your data already been collected, or do they need to be collected? And we're going to really try to find the challenges that might pop up in your research so we can prepare for them or, account for them analytically. So thinking about, for example, how common your outcome is, we want to make sure that you can realistically collect a sample size that can answer your question. If your study is really underpowered, then there's some rethinking that needs to happen. We'll try to get out of you the different patient characteristics that are important to account for and whether those are available, and things like whether patients who are sicker or stronger get different types of treatment. And we also really want to know about your data. We're going to ask you, how it was collected, when it was collected, again, how many patients are in that data set. What are the biases that might be present in your data? We're starting to think about this a lot more with EHR data. Where it's really not as objective, I think, as we all expected at first. There's a lot of biases even in that kind of data. Do your data actually measure the outcome? You'd be surprised how many times the data that people have doesn't actually measure their outcome. And whether the data measures relevant patient characteristics and confounders, because those are things that often come up in the manuscript review process, and you need to have a response for whether you were able to account for that. Missing data is another important thing we'll ask you about, and probably this is bolded because the biggest holdup for research we generally find is how long it takes to get data, how long it takes for the delivery of data, even if it already exists. So that's something that we will want to know so that we can realistically adjust for the timeline. If you are interested in working with us, I encourage you to visit our website. If you go to ceta.cuanschutz.edu, I think that takes you to our very much longer URL, but that's an easy shortcut to get there. And if you click on connect with us, you'll see this kind of like, 4 different choices, if you will. And this kind of falls into 4 buckets that we've talked about today. So transforming your project will take you to our consulting center for those more short one-time projects. Building a partnership is more of these long-term collaborations. Developing a grant we discussed today, and then attending a 1-hour consult. And so if you don't know where to start, I would encourage you to come to the 1-hour consults. And this is a great, again, this like kind of wayfinding where when you meet with the CETA faculty member in our consults, they can kind of help you figure out what level of support you need, where you might best find it, what's the best fit. Should you come through the consulting center? Is this a better fit for an FTE? That they can kind of help try to point you in the right direction, because I know that sometimes it's a little bit intimidating when I put up 6 different buckets of places you could go. A 1-hour consult is a great place to start to try to figure out what really is the best avenue for you based on your needs. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them now. And then, but you could also reach out to me or to our admin, ceta.admin. And then we are encouraging people to connect with us. We have a Twitter, and we also have a LinkedIn account if you want to find us on the internet. So I'm going to stop. We're right around 20 minutes, I think. And I would love it if anyone has questions. Well, if you do, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions, and as well as our CETA admin are happy to answer questions or route you to me. So if there are no questions, I'm going to pass it off to Amanda.
Great, thanks. I'm Amanda Miller. I'm the lead Redcap administrator here on campus, and I'm here today to talk to you about Redcap. All right. So to start off with, we have a couple polls just to find out where everybody who's used Redcap and with what kind of experience level. Give that a couple of seconds. All right, can we see what the results that we got? All right, so we've got a lot of experience, a lot of people here who've created their own projects, or at least used some data entry, and about a pretty even split then between people who haven't used it for very long and people who have been using it for at least probably as long as I have. So I'm going to start today by talking about what Redcap is. Redcap stands for Research Electronic Data Capture. It's a HIPAA-compliant data collection and storage application that was created by Vanderbilt University specifically for medical research. So when I talk about Redcap and HIPAA compliance, what we're providing for you, Redcap is maintained on a secure server. It's backed up twice daily with offsite backups. All data is encrypted in transit. All activity is automatically logged. We have secured login and access, the ability to easily identify and strip PHI identifiers from your data sets, and the ability to send information in a secure fashion, even to people without Redcap accounts. What HIPAA responsibility always has, software can only do so much. We have your responsibilities as well. A lot of these are just common sense. Never share your username or password. Never share an API token, which is fundamentally another password. Mark your identifiers and strip them before exporting if they aren't necessary, or if you're going to an unsecured device. Review all your data for identifiers or sensitive content before sharing. Always give the minimum required user rights to everybody on your project. You can always add more rights to them later on if they need it. And then never give project design or user management rights to someone who hasn't done the training to design projects and manage other people on your project. And I want to go over some of the key features of what Redcap has. So there's the ability to do form creation online and offline. It automatically creates your metadata as you create the forms. So it creates a human readable code book as you're programming it. It's laid out for easy systematic data collection. And at this point, we have a very customizable form layout between the ability to use HTML and the field embedding features that let you move fields around and change the layout of your project. For data collection, it is a web-based application accessible anywhere there's internet, but it is also capable of offline data collection with the Redcap app. This is primarily used for things like home visits, where you may not have access to internet, or people doing studies in often very rural areas where an internet connection is not something you can take for granted. It's great for multi-user and multi-site collaboration. One of the most heavily used features are the surveys. So these can be anonymous or identified. You can schedule series, control different survey paths for different participants, send them by email or SMS. And when there's actually a dedicated mobile app that's great for regular repeated surveys called MyCap, much more participant friendly really that for something that you're collecting daily than sending them a new email every day. It also has longitudinal data collection, the ability to repeat forms, and then there's an EConsent module for electronic consent that I'll spend quite a bit of time talking about in a few minutes. For import-export, you can do API or CSV imports. You can do direct entry via surveys. Exporting is CSV, R, SAS, status, SPSS, and XML. And Redcap, when you're exporting to one of those stats programs, Redcap will automatically create the syntax files for you as well. So you can download everything and run them in the order it tells you, and it should upload everything into your stats program for you. And you can create simple reports to view different data. It really is a database application, but it's developing more visualization and sharing application abilities. So you can securely send uploaded documents from Redcap via the send it feature. And this is a way to securely send a document to someone who may not even have a Redcap account, might be at another university. You can do reports that automatically create basic data visualization for you. And you can create and share aggregate data and data visualizations via project dashboards. A brand new feature we have is our public reports. These can share de-identified non-sensitive data from your project where they actually see individual data pieces. And I want to emphasize that this needs to be de-identified non-sensitive data that you're sharing in this method. So are there any quick questions on the general Redcap overview? All right, can we launch the second poll? We've got a second poll here looking at some of the more advanced features of Redcap that I want to get into, the EConsent and some of the somewhat neglected advanced features to see who's used those. All right, and can we see the results? All right, so we've got a bunch of people who've used Redcap for EConsent before, and some another group of people who have never needed to do online consent. Lots of use of alerts and notification, but no one who's used the missing data codes and no one who's used the multi-language module yet. So we've got a couple of big features here that could be really helpful for people. So the first thing I want to talk about is our EConsent module. So this part of Redcap is designed to be Part 11 capable. And by that, I mean it was designed with everything in mind that needs to happen for this module to be validated as Part 11. It is not, and then we have a CoMERB EConsent template that was designed with the Redcap team in the Office of Regulatory Compliance. This was again designed with Part 11 compliance in mind, but I want to be very clear that it has not gone through Part 11 verification. So this is a part of Redcap that is Part 11 capable and was designed with that thought process, but has not gotten over that final hurdle of being actually considered Part 11. But what the EConsent module does is it's a basic survey form that asks for someone's consent, then requires a participant to review the consent and sign a verification that all the information is correct. They can download a PDF version of the consent, and then it saves an authoritative PDF version in the Redcap file repository. And then we have additional forms in it for witness consent and for the researcher attestation of consent. So how you set this up is in your online designer, you'd go to survey settings and scroll down until you see the EConsent framework and PDF auto archiver. And for the most secure way of doing this, you want the auto archiver plus EConsent framework. So with this, you have the option of allowing these EConsent responses to be edited by users. It still creates an authoritative PDF of the very first time it's filled out, but checking this allows a user on your project to go in, and if someone made a mistake on it, they'd be able to go in and clear things out or change and update it. This is obviously a lower security level, but mistakes happen, and some projects want to be able to allow for that kind of adjustment. It allows you to put in version control and link your identifying fields. So first name, last name. And then you can add additional fields, date of birth, whatever you want. You can also select a signature field that will be erased if they go to certify and then click back to modify things, so that they have to re-sign when they go through and do the consent. And so this is from the CoMERB EConsent template, and you can see the basic template language being supplied that you would then go in and fill in with your project specific information. And then at the bottom, you have people verifying their consent, providing their information, email, and then usually doing some kind of electronic signature. It could be a type in, it could be a checkbox, it could be they sign with a touchpad. Check with your regulatory bodies to find out what kind of electronic signature they want there. And then they'd click that next page, and it takes them to this page. So I told you that the participants have the chance to download their consent document. It'll automatically download an option for that, or they can go at the top and print or save or bookmark that PDF, and this would be considered their official copy. After they've done that, at the very bottom, they have to certify that the document is correct, and that clicking submit electronically signs the form for them. So this is a binding document. And because you notice the language, I certify all of my information. This is designed for each person to go through the consent process themselves. So if you have multiple people consenting, you'll have multiple consent forms in your project. So here you can see the response. It's locked as read-only because it was completed via the EConsent framework. Nothing is going in and allowing people to edit what they put in. And then if you go to the file repository in Redcap and click on the PDF survey archive, we have this PDF, compact PDF that Redcap automatically created. You can see what record, when it was created, any identifiers it would put in there, IP address. This is the only time Redcap ever captures an IP address for surveys. And this will never change. So if I turned on the ability to edit that record and went in and changed their survey the responses on the data entry form, this PDF would never change, which is why we consider it an authoritative copy. So I mentioned that it is one consent form per person. We have additional witness consent forms in here, and then a place where the researcher can go and document that they went through the consent process. And part of Redcap's HIPAA compliance part of Redcap's documentation is every action that a person takes in a project is automatically logged, who did it, what they did, what time, down to the page level. So we have the Redcap log that can verify that the correct researcher went in there and documented the EConsent template at the correct time. So any questions on the EConsent process? See a little bit in the chat window. No, I don't have I can't tell you when we'll get Part 11 compliance on it. It's a constant discussion and work in progress.
Amanda, I can jump in.
Sure.
So right now, the decision is not to make our internal version Part 11 compliant. If you need a Part 11 compliant Redcap, we have access to CPC's cloud-based Redcap that is Part 11 compliant. So we can easily do a fee for service with them. The other resource that is being beta tested right now is, at least on the UC Health side, they are working towards having an EConsent module in Epic that will be Part 11 compliant. So those are the current resources. There are some other commercial resources that are available on a trial basis, and there's information on the COMOB website about those too.
Great, thank you. So the next thing I want to go into with Redcap is some really powerful but often underutilized features. And the first one of these is alerts and notifications, which it sounds like a lot of you actually do have experience with. Alerts and notifications are the ability to send emails or texts to anyone on or off the project. They're triggered by logic in the project. So you can trigger it when a form is saved, and certain conditional logic is true, or when conditional logic is true during a data import, data entry, or is time-based real logic. And what they mean by that is usually when a date difference comes true. So when the difference between the visit date and today is 7 days, then they want this alert to go out to somebody. You can tag how long it takes to send the alert, how many times it is, and then you can really put anything you want in an alert. Smart variables are a great way to add links to a specific form or specific survey. They'll always be connected to the record that triggered them. You can use piping to include specific details. And a nice thing about alerts that you can't do with a regular survey invitation is send attachments. Another really useful feature in Redcap, and one I'm guessing a lot of the statisticians would love for you to use more often, are data quality rules. So these help you enforce the highest quality of data collection in your project, and to screen your data for errors throughout the data collection process. Redcap comes with a bunch of rules set by default, being able to screen for blank values, feared validation errors, so where the data type is wrong in a field, or you've said that the answer should be inside of a specific range and you want to find those out of range answers. It lets you look for outliers, hidden fields that have values in them. A really common use for it is incorrect values for calculated fields. This is one that we always recommend anyone who's doing calculations in Redcap run anytime that they change a calculation. It'll rerun the calculations on every record in the project, tell you where there are mistakes, and let you update everything with a click. But it also lets you develop your own rules. So if you only want participants over the age of 18, if you wanted to flag if someone's getting a certain medication because they shouldn't be in the study at all, you can create any kind of rule you want to, and then you can set it to execute in real time. So this will give people a notification as they're doing data entry that they're entering data that is not an option for that field, and let them decide what to do with it. Really powerful way of making sure that you have really good data in your database, and save yourself hours and hours and hours of cleanup time on the back end. The next two kind of go together. So the field comment log is the light version. This lets you leave notes as you're doing data collection. You'll click on the little question speech bubble next to the question, and it pops up this log where it gives you the record, the field, the date, and the user, and then you can put in whatever comments you want to. A great way to enter a question you might have about a piece of data entry that you're doing, because you're often not working close to or at the same time as someone who might be able to answer that question. And then it creates a field comment log for you so that anyone can go in and filter by record or field or user and go in and see the comments and questions. An easy way for your team to communicate better about what's going on, and a very informal way of doing it inside while still having the log. The more intense version of that is the data resolution workflow. So this is something that you're going to turn on under optional modules and customizations and additional customizations. And it requires a lot more setup. So you can see in the picture, it says view more details. View more details. We also have a video on it that walks through it. So for this, you would actually have to set user privileges. Who can open queries, who can close them, who can respond to things, who can see what. But it's functionally a ticketing system inside of your project. It is a very regimented, careful way of recognizing potential issues, working through a resolution process, closing them, and having a formal resolution on it. So one of the features that no one flagged that they were using are missing data codes. Missing data, you are always going to have missing data in projects, or you're almost always going to have missing data in projects. And you often need to know why. Best practice really is not to just leave fields blank, because then you don't know, did you just skip it? Or is there a reason that there is no information to put there? So the missing data codes lets you set uniform codes to use throughout the project for missing data. So you can have a code for NA, unknown, unavailable, whatever works. Redcap provides a bunch of defaults, or you can just go in and put your own. And this is one of those places where I talk to your statistician and find out what their preference is, how many codes you can have, because it is very easy to go overboard in trying to sort out all the different types of missing data in your project. And also, what system do they want? Do they want a letter-based system? Do they want you to use negatives for your missing data codes? Since very, very rarely is real data negative, that's an easy way often of making it stand out. But then when you're doing data entry, you have this M button next to all the fields. And you can, anytime you come into a place where there's data missing that you need to mark for, you can select the reason why. And if it's already existing as M, you can also reset and put in new information if the data becomes available later on. And then the final one that I want to talk about today is the Multilanguage Management tool. And I'm not too surprised most people on this call haven't used it, because it is brand new. We just got it a couple of weeks ago. This is a way to add additional languages to your project where you're translating both the fields and the interface. So I want to be clear, the page doesn't auto-translate everything for you. There is, to my knowledge, and I'd love to be corrected on this, no computerized translational tool that's sensitive enough to handle data collections for the kind of research everybody on this call is doing. You need to have someone who actually speaks and knows the language to do, especially participant-facing translations. But we do have system language files that will translate the vast majority of the Redcap interface for you. I know we have system language files downloaded for Spanish, German, and Japanese, and there are other ones on there as well. And where these comes from are from volunteers, volunteer Redcap administrators who speak multiple languages, have sat down and translated the entire Redcap interface for you. So it may not be, and these translations are for different versions of Redcap, and so they're varying, and they're done voluntarily by admins. So there are varying versions, but if there's a language you need to use, reach out to us and we'll take a look and help you find what's there. And we can let you know how complete it is. And then the beauty of this multi-language module is you can go in and fill in the gaps that you need by yourself. You may not need everything translated in the interface. You may just need something, the participant facing side translated. And that much is often done. And then for your forms and your surveys, you'll go in and put the translations in yourself. And you translate those individual fields, those individual answer choices. And this allows both users on your projects and participants to easily flip between languages. You can set a language preference for a specific user or a specific participant. You can force forms to show up in different languages. It can accommodate right to left languages as well as left to right. So this is a really neat, really powerful tool. It takes some work because it's such a complete set of translations for the project. But if you have participants who are speaking multiple languages, you can set up your surveys to be easily switched to their languages. And if you are working on with a group of multilingual Redcap users and collaborators, this can translate the interface for those users as well, so that you can have different users using different languages in your project. Here are some of the other pictures, so you can see what it looks like when you're going in and you're doing all the translations in your form. It gives you the variable name, and then it tells you what your field label was, and you can provide your translation. And so this, you're not creating an English and a Spanish form, you're having one form, one set of variable names, fewer things to collapse down and set. And then when you're in the survey, there's a language button, and they can just switch to whatever language they want to that you've supplied in the project. So I'm finishing a touch early, but any other Redcap questions or questions on these features? Not project specific, but overall feature questions. If it's project specific, let's set up one-on-one time. So what do the comments on the field data log look like on data exports? Good question. See if it'll let me. Easiest way is to show you. And I believe I'm trying to think of a project I may have set up where it is turned on. And I'm not certain. It is basically just a PDF, so I can show you what the blank export looks like at the very least. So we go in here and find the field comment log. There we are. Switch to the data resolution workflow here. Save. So this is a very basic, but it's looking at the query, number of comments, the record it's involved in, any data access groups involved, field, user assigned, days open, updates, last updates, time raised, time resolved. So pretty basic log, but gives you what you need. And it will give you full resolution metrics as well. I believe there's a log that will, and I'm going to have to dig for a place where I have it properly set up for you to be able to show it. I'm happy to share that information offline so that I'm not digging through a couple dozen projects trying to find the right spot where I have it set up quickly. All right, thanks everyone for having me in today. If you have any questions on any of this, remember that Redcap support is free. So if you have any questions on your projects or about anything I talked about today, or anything you can't figure out how to make Redcap do for you, give us an email at redcap@ucdenver.edu, and we're happy to help you out.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Amanda. It looks like there are no more questions in the chat, so we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next month.